Hi, welcome to another knee-jerk reaction video review. Today I'm going to review Godzilla King of the Monsters. Um, I just want to let you know that I try not to give spoilers, but sometimes I talk about the movie because that's what this is about. So if you're not into spoilers, I try not to give anything away, but I might have to make a plot point or something. Uh, so something might slip out. But I just watched Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I want to give you some context for how my review is going to go. Now, I'm a child of the 60s and 70s, and back then, you only had three, maybe four channels if you were lucky. And you've all heard old timers talk about Saturday morning TV. You sit around, you know, eating a bowl of cereal, watching your cartoons every Saturday morning for about 6 hours. And those were good times. But what a lot of old timers won't tell you about is Sunday morning TV. Now, Sunday morning TV, it seems like it was every channel there would be old movies on. And these old movies just were always the same old movies over and over and over again. They were Laurel and Hardy, they were Abbott and Costello. Sometimes you'd get a Lewis movie. Sometimes you might get, like a Buster Keaton or something. But those were the kind of movies that they would just show over and over and over again. And then after that, they would show a Godzilla movie. And so, over the course of years and years, I've seen every Godzilla movie multiple times. And, back then the Godzilla movies were they were campy. They were very silly. I mean, the special effects were awful. And you could tell it was a guy in a suit. And when they smashed down buildings, you could see it was just cardboard. And even, they could not, he would tip over a building. You could literally see the cardboard falling apart. And they weren't scary. They weren't horrible. You wanted to watch it because you wanted to see what the monsters would do. You wanted to see the monsters fight. And there was very little consequence that they always fought in a landscape and in these buildings that were cardboard, and you never felt in danger or, it just, there was no, what's the word I'm looking for? There was no tension. And another thing about these movies is there was always some little kid, and the little kid would have some idea, and I'm talking a little kid, and the little kid would have an idea, and he would, tell the adults, he'd go, no, I know what to do, and, the adults would actually listen to him. And as a little kid, that like inspired me. I'm like, oh man, I want to live in Japan, because in Japan, the adults listen to the kids, even in times of crisis and stuff. So that was kind of refreshing. And so I grew up on these movies, every movie you could think of, every monster movie, watched them multiple times. They always showed them over and over and over again. So this is kind of, this is one of the reasons why I'm one of the very few people that liked the old Godzilla movie with Matthew Broderick, where Godzilla's in New York and they're chasing down. And I know the story was stupid. I know whoever wrote it knows nothing about the military and the whole Siskel and Ebert as the mayor. It was very silly, but that's how I pictured a Godzilla movie to be. I mean, it was tenseful, there was tension, but it was campy tension. It wasn't, what's the word? Words are escaping me. It's very early in the morning. But when I watched this movie, I was really, when I watched the first Godzilla movie of this franchise, the first thing I thought of was, this Godzilla is freaking huge. I mean, he's just huge. And it's the biggest Godzilla I've ever seen. And he totally obliterates San Francisco. And, these aren't the kind of Godzilla movies I grew up with. And there were a lot of deaths in this movie, and on-screen deaths, and it was just, it wasn't the Godzilla I grew up with. And of course, it's a reboot, and they're rebooting the movie, and that's just how it goes. So when I came into this one, I thought, okay, and in the first movie, the first thing that everyone thought of was, where's Rodan? Where's Mothra? Where's Ghidra? Where's all these other monsters? I'm trying to think of the name of the two caterpillars that were always paired up. And, in the old movies, it was kind of confusing because sometimes Godzilla Sorry about that. My cat was getting me. Sometimes Godzilla was, friends of the humans and helped the humans out and were saving the human. And sometimes Godzilla was the enemy and the humans were fighting against them. And, it was always a little bit confusing. So in the first movie, it was ambiguous. Godzilla was just fighting the monsters and the humans took the toll. And in this movie, he was definitely like fighting for the humans. And when I saw the previews, I thought, oh look, there's Rodan, there's Mothra, and they were showing some of the lesser ones. And I thought, wow, they're gonna bring them all, And it's cool. It's like when you watched the very first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, and there was no Rocksteady and Bebop, and then they had two big monsters, but they weren't Rocksteady and Bebop, and you're like, what the hell, man? So in the first movie, I was waiting for a familiar monster, but they came up with two new ones. So in this movie, I think they said 17 or 17 and counting. So I imagine there's going to be like a smog monster, if I remember correctly. There might even be a Mecha Godzilla. There was many references. They almost poured it down your throat that there's going to be a King Kong, because they showed pictures of it. They kept mentioning Skull Island over and over and over again. So it's like they just pushed it in your face that, yeah, King Kong is coming. He's going to fight Godzilla. There was an old movie with King Kong fighting Godzilla. Very campy, very fun. So it's going to be fun to see. There's a scene in the old movie where King Kong's fur catches fire. And like he's confused by that. So I would love to see that in the next movie. But in this movie, I was really disappointed. These monsters are so huge and so destructive. They're not the campy movie monsters from the old movies. They're horrifying. I guess it was in the horror section when I looked it up and found it. So I'm guessing it was supposed to be a horror movie. But yeah, these monsters were just so unbelievably huge. And in this movie, they obliterated Boston, just obliterated it. And, lots of deaths. And they're talking about, in San Francisco, 20,000 people died, and might have even been more than that. I don't know. But, that's something that you didn't see in the older movies. It was just monsters fighting monsters. But in this one, just, destruction and death, and it just didn't seem right. And the monsters were so freaking huge. It's like it took away from the reality of it, because how could something so large live in a world, And I was really disappointed, and that was the first thing that disappointed me. One of the things in this movie, before Godzilla fires his ray and before Ghidorah shoots out his lightning bolts, there was like a warning. In the old movies, Godzilla just fired his fire and his fins lit up at the same time. In this movie, his fins would light up, indicating he was going to shoot his I don't know what they call that, his ray beam. And in the Ghidorah, the three necks, they would light up just prior to shooting the lightning bolts. And so you always had this warning. So there was ominous moments where you could see these lights lighting up, and oh, here it comes, it's coming. So the first time, he's going to knock this plane out of the air. And of course, Godzilla jumps in from the side and saves everybody. And, you're thinking, oh, okay, that was cool. And then it happened again. And you're like, oh, why would they do that twice? And so when it happens a third time, you're like, oh God, I can't believe they did that a third time. Now, if you've ever watched any of my other reviews, my criteria for a good movie is being entertained. And if something happens in the movie that takes you out of the movie, that like reminds you that you're watching a movie, because you get engrossed in a movie, and when you're engrossed in a movie, you're really watching it, you're immersed in it. And when something happens that takes you out of the movie, reminds you that, hey, this is just a movie, to me, that's minus points. So when this happened a third time, I'm like, God, I can't believe they pulled the same stunt 3 times. And you're just like, why? Can't they do something different? The other thing is the group. I'm drawing a blank on the group. And remember, this is a knee-jerk reaction video. The group was started with an M. Monarch. And they got this big plane. It's reminiscent of the big plane in Agents of Shield. Agents of Shield always fly around this big plane, and they're flying around this big plane. It has all the scientific instrument in it, but they kept putting it in danger. And I know it's not a military organization, but they had paramilitary people in it. But why would you take all your best scientists, your best people, put them on a plane and put them in danger? And why would you risk all of this to rescue one person? I mean, if this was real life, they'd be like, okay, sorry about that one person who we all hate, by the way. We'll come back when the big fight is over and sift through the rubble and see if we can find them. They're not going to risk all. I mean, they're the ones that are supposed to be controlling everything, and they're going to risk everything to save one person. And that took me out of the movie. That was that didn't make sense, and I can't see an organization making those decisions. So that took me out of the movie. Another thing that took me out of the movie was it starts right out with brutal, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, brutal, horrible, in-your-face murders. Just cold-blooded people getting killed by other people, not even by the monsters, by other people, just getting shot in the face. And this does not belong in a movie like this. I'm sorry, but maybe have it happen off screen, have the people show up, and there might be bodies laying around. But to show people just in cold blood shooting each other, and I mean, it was just unarmed scientists, and then people just come in and shoot them, and it's that doesn't belong in a movie like this. That makes this movie, to me, that made the movie a total non-recommendation for me. I would not recommend this movie for anybody with kids or anybody, I don't know, that isn't into that kind of thing. It was just a snuff film at that point. So that really bothered me. So what was good about the movie? You have big monsters fighting. That's cool, and it's always going to be cool. But just the sheer size and the sheer amount of destruction they did, and knowing that people are dying, they were talking about 20,000, 30,000 people dying, I don't know, that just takes you out of it. Let them fight on a countryside where, there's nothing there. And, the first fight took place in the ocean, and I was getting into that one because there's no one around to get killed. And yeah, it was knocking planes out of the sky, and yes, it was eating pilots and, doing all these weird things, but at least it wasn't killing thousands and thousands of people with every step they took and every swing of their tail. I don't know. And one of the good things I really liked was the way they wrote the story for the kid. I mean, the kid overheard their plan, and like a hobbit snuck in and stole something, and because everyone overlooks the kid, went out and tried to do the plan themselves. But you realize that this kid was trained from a very young age by their parents how to use this equipment. So that made sense to me. She went out, tried to do this by herself, and then with the realization that, hey, I just called all the monsters to where I'm standing, and then tries to run, and then just like a kid goes to the one place where they felt safe, their home, and and then another step found the one safe place in the home that saved them. And when they flipped over that piece of wood and you see where she's laying, I'm like, yeah, that's what a kid would do. That was halfway smart, So I did like the writing for the kid. That was very reminiscent of the old Godzilla movies where the little kid saves the day. So that was okay, but just as a whole, the brutal murders, the mass killings, the sheer size and destruction, that just took me out. I mean, this is a whole new franchise. They rebooted everything, and I'm just not going to be interested in it. And maybe watch it if you got a big screen and surround sound and you kind of immerse yourself in it. But by the third time, it's just like in Star Wars when they're getting chased by the big fish and another fish comes and I think it was Qui-Gon who says, yeah, there's always a bigger fish. And every time Godzilla saves the day, you're like, well, there's your bigger fish. And that kept coming into my head, and that would take me out of the movie, and I'm like, ugh. So there is one thing I would have loved to see. And in the old movie, there's these little fairy girls who like talk in unison and they sing in unison and they controlled Mothra that way. So when they showed, the girl reveal that she's a twin and that her parents were twins and her parents before that were twins, I'm like, I would die to see these two girls get together because they were separate in the movie. They weren't even shown in the same scene together. But to have these two girls come together when Mothra is there and sing a song or make their piercing sounds, I would have just that would have made my day. But they didn't do that. I mean, they hinted at it. They hinted that, you know, anyone watching the old movies know about these twin fairies, and to show them when she shows pictures of her ancestors, like, oh, twin, 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 like, oh, these are the, what they're interpreting as the twins, but no, it never came to fruition. Yeah, but overall, I'm not going to recommend this movie. I just can't. I mean, it was, I don't know. I don't even know what, I haven't looked at IMDb or anything. I don't know what the overall take was. I'm not even sure what other critics thought of it. I remember it came out, and then I never heard anything about it. With just, it's not a good sense. It's not like one of those movies that was in theaters for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, as everyone just was eating it up. I just remember it coming out, and then I don't remember what happened to it after that. So I mean, that's probably a sign that there's probably some other people that feel the way I do. Just and people who might have taken their kids to this movie to see these brutal, in your face murders, these cold-blooded murders. No, I would never. I mean, I would love to sit and watch this movie with my grandkids, but I would never do that now. It's just horrible. They took a movie that could have been a family movie. It could have been like Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park had some in-your-face killings, but it didn't have a guy with a gun come up and blow someone's head off right in front of you, and just in cold blood, an unarmed person saying, "Hell, I surrender," and then boom, blow your head off. No, that's just awful. I can't condone that. So this is going to be, big thumbs down for me. Big. I always make up a scale. See Godzilla movies. This is baby Godzilla bad. So a big no for me. I will not recommend this movie. So my name is Star Thinker, and this is my knee-jerk reaction video to Godzilla King of the Monsters. See it if you're into monsters fighting each other, but know that there's all these other things that will just take you out of the movie and kind of spoils everything. So I'm going to sign off. Just a reminder, I do have books on Amazon. I do have other reviews up. And I guess that's it. So I'm going to sign off. This is Star Thinker, and have a good day.